one hand, you'll say, well, I don't have any information, I don't have any knowledge. It's possible God could exist. I don't know if God exists or not. But then you argue using science as if science supports a position that God doesn't exist. What
I've never said that. I
mhm,
people typically don't ask this, but
mhm.
when they ever do, I say you can't use science to prove or disprove God.
You can use science to show to refute a natural interpretation, for instance, of evolution. I mean, it's no way that evolution can occur naturally, and you can say that
What?
because
You believe in evolution.
yeah, but it can't occur naturally though because of information
It
theory.
obviously can. You believe that it does.
No, I believe it occurs because of an intelligently designed code that that tells
Even
evolution
even
exactly how
if
to
that's
evolve.
true,
Hmm.
even if uh, God designed DNA and the
Hmm.
replicating mechanisms within cells to
Hmm.
work in a way that allows organisms to evolve, they
Hmm.
still evolve naturally.
No, they don't. They can't.
Yes, they. Yes,
You know
okay,
why they
so
can't?
I.
Let me tell you why they can't evolve naturally. Because nothing naturally can occur without, for instance, error correction and error detecting codes. That things like redundancy, things that codes put in place, they go in place with information as the information is being copied. You can't have anything happening naturally without an intelligently designed codes that make sure when you copy in the information when it goes from DNA sequence to the polypeptide chain, that you
Sure.
reduce the amount of errors that occur because nature
Sure.
destroys information as it's
Okay,
being copied.
I got a
So
question.
without that, you can not have no evolution if you don't have an intelligent. It will be overrun with errors without intelligently designed error correction and error detection.
Sure, I
So it
got
can
a.
happen
Sure, I
naturally.
got to. Let me interrupt. I got a question. Do you think that every single time a cell in my body copies DNA, a miracle
Mhm.
happens?
What you mean a miracle?
Do you think that a miracle happens every single time one of my cells in my body copies the DNA?
It don't. You don't need a miracle. It's just information.
So, because no miracle is happening,
Why are you trying to throw in
it's
miracles? I'm
not, it
talking
is
about information
happening
theory.
naturally. So,
Hold
everything you just said is not
on.
true.
Why are you throwing in miracles? See, you trying to throw in the red herring. Miracles have nothing to do with it. I was talking about. Listen,
This is the
I
most,
was
this
talking
is the
about.
most this use of this card ever.
Do you know
No,
anything
you.
about? Hold on. Do you
No,
know
you.
anything about information theory? What is
No, you.
information? How does Claude Shannon describe information?
I don't know what Santa Claus ever said about
How does
information.
Claude? Do you
That's
know
not
what
what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what
You
exactly
said
what
it
I'm
can't
talking about.
happen naturally. And then I
I'm
asked, you said DNA can't be
see
copied
this
with error
this is the
correction
problem. This is
naturally. And then I asked you, when my cells copy the DNA, does a miracle happen? And you said no. That refutes everything you just said.
this is the problem. You talking about miracles, but I said nothing about miracles. I'm talking about the
You said it.
genetic
How did
code.
the intelligent
I'm
designer
talking
make the.
about the genetic code. I'm not talking about you trying to throw in
Yeah.
miracles because you don't know what information is or the genetic code. I'm
But you
asking you a
said it
specific.
requires
Let
an
me let,
intelligent
let me
designer. The
ask you a
intelligent
specific
designer
question.
didn't do. Angel, you said it can't happen
It
naturally.
can't.
That's a miracle.
Okay, well, no, it's not. It's just intelligent. Listen, I'm gonna ask you a
Intelligent.
question
The
now. If
if
you
the
say it can
intelligent
happen
designer
naturally,
didn't do it naturally,
okay,
then he
well,
did it, or she did it, or it did
oh,
it
okay, not by a
supernaturally, which
miracle,
would
but
be a miracle.
by creating an encode and decoding system, just like we see in information theory. Let
Yeah,
me ask you a question.
miraculously.
Let me ask you a question, because we know what encode and decoding systems is. If it happened naturally, here go the code for valine right here. GTT, GTC, GTA,
Yep.
GTG. And it
Yep.
encodes for information, not for the amino acid valine, but information about the amino acid valine. You don't get to the actual amino acid until the polypeptide chain. So just information about the amino acid is encoded onto these four sequences. Anytime you see,
Naturally.
hold on. Anytime we know what encoding and decoding systems are. Anytime you see encoding and decoding systems, you need an intelligent mind to encode the information onto the sequences. If you're saying it
No, you
happens
don't.
naturally,
You
you
just
got to
said you
say how
don't.
the magic mud did it. You got to tell me how the magic mud did it without an intelligent encoder. Listen what Hubert Yaki said. This is
Mr.
you
Miyagi.
guys are going
What?
against
You
science.
said Santa Claus and then now you're talking about Mr. Miyagi?
No, I'm talking about like Hubert Yaki said DNA transcription. Hubert Yaki worked with Oppenheimer in the Manhattan Project. Also worked in biology and information theory. He wrote a book. He said DNA transcription is an encoding decoding mechanism isomorphic with Claude Shannon's 1948 model. The sequence of base pairs is encoded into the messenger RNA, which is decoded into the proteins. Every time we see an encoding decoding system, whether it's a DVD player, whether it's computer language, a computer code and a computer, it's always caused by an intelligent encoder, intelligent designer that
No, it isn't.
knows information about
Because
the system.
my
And
cells don't do it. You said
but
they
you're
don't.
saying, hold up,
So in other
you're
words,
saying
no you.
you saying
It
it
happens
happens naturally.
naturally. You
That's
admitted
your
that it happens
position.
naturally.
You're on Fantasy Island. You're the one that's saying it happened without an intelligent encoder.
You are in the
You
forest of
listen.
contradictions.
You
You
are
have put
saying,
yourself in an impenetrable
listen.
fortress
I'm
of
talking about
contradictions.
science. We know the science of information theory very well. It builds our modern
Yeah, great.
civilization. Why are you being anti-science? We're ta-
I'm not being anti
you
the
are.
person asserting that
You're
miracles
being
must happen in order for
anti-science.
natural things to occur is the person being
Look,
anti-science.
if you're saying it occurred naturally, how did it occur without how did an encoding decoding system happen without an intelligent encoder?
Naturally.
How? I don't want to. I don't know. You got to give me a reason, a sufficient reason. You act like you on
It
a fantasy
happens
island, like you can just
naturally.
have whatever
It
you want.
happens naturally today.
How?
So how could it not
Look,
have arisen naturally in the first place?
look, listen. I'm gonna give you an example. When you put ice on a table and it melts, that occurs naturally because there's a change in the temperature.
And
You
my
don't need
cells
a
copy the
you
DNA
don't need
naturally.
hold
You
up.
said that they do that.
You don't need encoded information to tell ice how to melt. So when you have encoded information, where information is encoded onto a sequence of codons, and you say it wasn't an intelligent encoder, tell me how did the magic mud learn about amino acids and encode that information onto these four sequences? You s- uh, give me
It
you claim to
happens
know.
naturally today. You
You,
admitted it.
why are you so? This is atheism of the gaps. You sound
Atheism of the
ridiculous.
gaps. I'm not
Atheism of the gaps. What in
atheism of
the
the
world?
gaps.
Look. This is
I've
the
never heard anyone say that. You're the first one.
look.
That's
This
so
is the.
good.
It's simple. This is the genetic code. The
Magic
genetic.
mud.
Look. It says VAL is
I
valine.
know you don't have. I have been teaching
Okay.
this stuff for a
Now
decade.
that's just information about the amino acid valine.
I know.
How did that get in? If you say there's no intelligent encoder that encoded these sequence with the amino acid valine,
The fact that it
what
occurred.
was the ingredient in
Angel.
the magic mud?
Okay, you're saying the same thing that you've been saying the whole time. Okay, which is why I muted you. The fact that it occurs naturally today without without the requirement of any miracle, if it can't happen without an intelligent designer, then how come it happens today without an intelligent designer? Right?
Doesn't happen today without intelligent designer. Every time you see an encoding decoding system, which is in DNA and has been in DNA since the beginning, every time you see that information encoded onto a sequence, See, because it's arbitrary. That's why we can encode
There's
books on
information just in
DNA.
the atoms themselves.
We
This
can
all
encode.
happens through
Hold up.
chemistry.
We can
Chemistry
encode.
doesn't happen
We can
miraculously.
encode
It
books.
follows a bunch of
No,
known physical like
but
laws
it's
and mechanisms.
arbitrary. We can
It's not
encode.
arbitrary.
We can
What?
encode books on DNA on a drop. We can encode
We
movies
can
and
code books
DVDs
on silica chips.
on
Therefore,
DNA.
the only way
But
silica
it's
could have
encoded.
existed is
I,
if an intelligent designer created
the,
silica atoms.
the problem I think you misunderstand, and that you don't understand what information is and how it's encoded onto a sequence. If and it's arbitrary.
There's
I can
information in
listen.
atoms,
Let me just give
Angel.
you a quick example
You're
of
you're
what.
acting, Angel. So the problem with this argument is you're it's you're kind of asserting that DNA is information and
It is.
it's made of constituent parts that don't contain information. But that's
It's
not true. Atoms themselves have information in
it's an
them
encoding, but
because
I'm talking
everything has
about an
information in
encoding.
it.
Again, I'm talking science, encoded, decoded system from Carl Shannon's
I
1948
can
novel.
tell you that atoms have a
And
code,
no,
Angel.
no, they don't encode
Yes,
sequences with
the
information. Listen, I'm
the
gonna tell you.
the
Let me.
configuration of valence electrons in an atom you can say is a code because it predicts, you can use it to predict and tell what the chemical properties of those elements will be. In fact, Dmitry Mendeleev, when he created the first periodic table, he left blank spots because although he didn't even know that the electron existed, he knew that there were groups of chemicals that had these similar properties. And then later we figured out that that is due to the configuration of those valence electrons. So I can say that just the individual atoms themselves have a code in them.
Fetus, you need to listen because you don't know what information is or what information theory means when it says encoded decoded system. If I look at these chairs around my table and I say, well, if you see two chairs around my table, call me on my cell phone at 5 o'clock. But if you see four chairs around my table, call me on my cell phone at 6 o'clock. I have just encoded information about my cell phone, work phone, 5 o'clock.
Atoms do this. This is
Hold up.
present in atoms.
Listen, onto the sequence.
This is present in atoms.
On, no,
The
it's not.
configuration of valence electrons.
So,
It's
onto
the same thing.
sequence.
In fact, in order
Onto
for a
the
methane
sequence.
molecule to form,
Listen what I'm
the
saying.
carbon
Onto
atom
the
has to
sequence.
bring one of its lower energy
No,
level
I
electrons
just encoded
up
information. Show me
in
the
order
published
for those
paper where
form
we
four
encoded
single
70
bonds.
billion ebooks onto an atom. Show me the published paper where
Again,
we encoded 70 billion ebooks onto the sequences of a drop of DNA.
therefore God?
Show me the atoms that encoded
Show me how that
70
proves
billion
a God
ebooks.
exists.
No, you just made a statement, which is a lie. It has nothing to
I
do with
didn't.
information theory. Nothing. We're talking about, we know a DVD player is an encode and decoder mechanism. You encode the DVD with information. You build a DVD to decode. This is why Hubert Yaki said this, and he wrote this. He said, information, transcription, translation, code, redundancy, synonymous, messenger, editing, and proofreading are all appropriate terms in biology. They take their meaning from information theory and are not synonyms, metaphors, or analogies. What you're talking about is not information theory. There's nobody encoding 70 billion ebooks onto atoms. There's nobody encoding movies onto atoms. There's nobody encoding PDF files onto atoms. We understand this
Yeah,
because
there
of
isn't as
information
much you
theory.
can do with it because it's smaller.
Because we understand information theory, and you still haven't answered my
Angel,
question. You still
a
haven't answered my
chemical
simple question.
the
How
atoms
did they leave?
themselves,
How did
chemical
they?
reactions are reversible, which means that everything you need to know about the reactants and products is
My
discernible
goodness,
from just studying the chemical nature of the
you're living on
physical
fantasy
constituent
island.
parts of the atoms. I teach sophomores this stuff.
You listen.
I could call
Listen.
that encoding and decoding.
Listen. Tell me how. I just showed you. You didn't give me one example. I want you to send me one published paper with any scientist, any geneticist that says atoms, what you're talking about, is just like what's in DNA, where we're just encoding information. Send me one published paper that says this. One. This is information about the amino acid, not the actual amino acid, being encoded onto sequences, 4 sequences that have redundancy in order to protect the information as it's being copied. That's the encoded. That's why we have error correction in web browsers and search engines, because we know about information as it's being copied. And you can't answer the question, where in the magic mud, did you get, where in the magic mud did you, because first you have to learn about the amino acid valine. You have to know about the amino acid valine, information about it, and then you take that information and code it onto a sequences.
Angel,
And then you build machinery
Angel,
to decode those sequences.
Angel. Do you know that we have working, operating quantum computers right now?
But yeah, we have
Okay, so you realize that the way a quantum computer works is it stores binary information on an individual atom?
No, it stores information on qubits. Do you know what qubits are?
Is it 4 or no? A byte is 8.
No. Qubits. Do you know what quantum error correction is
No.
and how it's connected to qubits and information? We going right back to information. See, this is the problem. You have to first learn about, accept what information theory is. It's a well understood science. We encode it on qubits. Qubits occur because of superposition.
Oh, I thought you were saying qubit, so it's just a qubit. So yeah, a
Qubit.
bit, Angel, a bit is just a piece of binary information, and then it's encoded in the individual
Hold
atom.
on. Say
So
that
the thing you were
again.
asking for, show me a published paper or
Say,
whatever,
say that again.
where information has been encoded on an atom.
So,
We have
yeah, well,
working
say,
quantum computers. So what I'm trying
hold
to
on.
say is, no, you.
No. What did you say it was? Say that again. It's information. You coming right back to me. What is information? It's a qubit. A qubit is a quantum bit. It's information. You still dealing with information. You can't avoid the fact that when we're talking about the genetic code, it's pure information being copied from the DNA sequence to the polypeptide chain, and the actual information has to get encoded onto the sequence. And you keep saying this magic mud doing it, but what in the
No,
magic
I
mud
never
is
I
doing
never
it?
said that. But Michael, do you know anything about quantum computers or computing in general?
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay. Well, then. So the reason I brought that up is because you said, "Show me where we have like stored information on atoms." That's what quantum computers do.
Yes, on qubits. It's information. Well, it's still an intelligent encoder
For
creating
fuck's
qubits and storing information on the sequence of the
So the
qubits.
fact that
That's
atoms
what a quantum.
exist
Hold up,
is evidence of an
hold up. Do you know
intelligent
what quantum error
creator?
correcting codes are? You have to have quantum error correcting codes in order to have quantum computers. You know who designed quantum error correcting codes? Intelligent minds who have to use qubits and encode the sequence of qubits with information. It takes 8 qubits to encode one logical qubit onto quantum error correcting code.
The
That doesn't
question was,
happen
can
naturally.
information be stored on
That
one?
doesn't
And yes,
happen
it can.
naturally. That happened because an intelligent mind has come up with a quantum error correcting code.
The question was, is there information in an individual atom? And the answer is yes. And we can
No,
use that information.
but it's not encoded information. Nothing is encoded on it. The encoded
Yes, it is.
information. What's encoded on? Hold on. What's encoded on the qubit? Tell me.
What's encoded on the atom? I don't
What's
know exactly
encoded?
how quantum
What
computers work,
information?
but they
What
use the
information?
atom as the. I'm not really great with the computer terminology, but they use
You know what
it's
you
either the
should say.
spin or something about the atom to determine
What you
if
should
it's
say.
yes or
What you should
no.
say, Peterson, is that you will learn more about something like that because you're talking ridiculous. You should say, well, I'm going to learn more about information theory, and I'm going to look at Hubert Yaki, see what he says, since he's an expert on this biology and information theory, bioinformatics. I'm going to look into what Claude Shannon said, and I'm going to look into DNA, the fact that there's this problem, this gap, this atheism of the gaps. There's this gap between information about an amino acid and encoded everything from information theory is in DNA. This is why you have to have error correction and detection, because nature destroys encoded information as it's being
Except
copied.
it doesn't, because our cells
As
do
it's being
this
copied.
without the need of divine intervention.
Oh my
And that's not
goodness.
according to me, that's according to you. Because I
Let,
asked you and you said no.
Peterson, tell me, how can DNA make it from the DNA sequence to the polypeptide chain without error correction and redundancy and proofreading and error correction? It's the same thing you have to have for information, encoded information in any intelligently designed system, because nature
Angel,
destroys information. And what you're
Angel,
saying is nature built these error correcting codes in order to thwart itself, to stop itself from destroying itself. The magic
Angel,
mud
you,
stopped itself from destroying
magic
itself.
mud. I love
I mean,
that
that
term.
makes no sense.
Angel, you believe in evolution. The only way species can evolve is for errors in this DNA copying mechanism to occur, because the DNA can't change and the species can't change over time unless
What
changes
errors has
in
occurred
genes and
in
gene expression
it
occur.
don't depend
So
on errors.
this is a necessary component of your
No, it's not.
worldview.
Tell
Yes,
me
it
what
is, because
tell
you
me
believe in evolution.
what errors occurred in the genetic code all these billions of years.
What?
How
The
many
code is
how
not
many
copied
errors
perfectly. That's
how
what
many
leads to
errors occurred?
differences
Hold on. How many
in the genetic composition. And then those
okay.
differences are passed down and inherited in
Hold on. How many
the
errors
individual
how many errors
generation by generation, it doesn't add up to much, but over
how
the
many
course
errors
of enormous numbers of generations, it causes full-blown speciation. You believe in that. The only way
how
that can happen
but
is
I
through, it's
believe in
not
that
the
because
only way, but that
listen,
happens.
if you listen, I tell you, the genetic code hasn't changed for billions and billions of years. It's
That's
encoded for the same.
literally
It's
false.
encoded for the same 20 amino acids and the same
You
start
don't
and
know
stop
that. You don't
proteins
know that
for
you don't know
billions.
what the living
When is
cells
it
3
coded
billion
for?
years ago
Hold on.
used all
There's
20
over
amino acids. You
500.
don't know
There's over
that.
500 amino acids. Give me a paper that shows when DNA encoded for something different than these 20 amino acids.
What?
When is the genetic code for coded for anything different than these 20 amino acids?
I'm not claiming that it has. You are, and
Well,
you don't
well,
have
well,
anything to
well.
back that
Hold
up.
up. Well, look. How are you saying? Hold up. How are you saying that mutations are doing anything when it's just information being copied from a
Yeah,
sequence,
wrongly.
the sequences that already have meaning? If something switched from valine to glycine, it already has meaning in the genetic code. It
Angel,
already
could
has
you,
meaning.
Angel,
The mutation didn't give it meaning. It had meaning in the genetic code. If you tell me,
Angel?
just tell me this: if you have an error
No,
where
because
a code
you're
switched from
changing the
valine,
subject.
or no, if it switches to valine to glycine, did the
That's an error.
mutation, did the mutation make it mean glycine, or did it already mean glycine before the mutation? Uh-oh.
You're you haven't made any. Okay, I was gonna draw a picture, but forget it.
Oh man, that's funny.
You
It comes right back to information. We are
you're
intelligently
just yelling and not
designed.
giving me a chance to talk,
Hold on.
and
The
pretending that you
Bible
came up with
says
something.
we are intelligently designed by our Creator. We are wonderfully and intelligently designed, made. And one Psalm 139:14. And this has been the same genetic code for billions of years, because it has to be, because because you copying the same information from the DNA sequence to the polypeptide chain. And when a copying area occurs, a mutation occurs, it's just changing it's just changing say valine to leucine, or glutamic acid to valine. But the mutation doesn't give the sequence meaning. That's like saying I have a bunch of scrambled alphabet
Yep,
no.
that's
I'm
great. Okay.
scrambling the
Can I
alphabet
can
on
I
the
please
table.
talk? You've been talking for almost 5 minutes.
I'm about to finish. You're scrambling alphabets on the table, and the term "the store" just happens to come up in that sequence on the store. The only way the store means something is because it has meaning. The scrambling itself, what you're saying is the scrambling itself gave that sequence meaning. That's just absurd. Absolutely absurd. And it all comes back to Psalms 139:14. We are
Now, no
fearfully
preaching.
and
Okay. You
wonderfully.
said you were almost done. Okay, so it's my turn. I wrote down everything you just said. Okay, here it is. Tell me if this is correct.
Come on, so we have a serious conversation, man.
Is this correct? It's not correct, right? Right? It's not correct. Angel, this is not
What?
correct, right?
What does that have to do with anything I just said?
Okay, so did I make an error when I copied down the information?
But that's not the point.
Did I make an error? You preached for so long. Please just
That's
answer my questions.
ridiculous.
Did I make an
That's
error?
ridiculous. No,
Did I make an error in writing down the information of
let
what
me
you
tell
said?
you. Let me answer the question. No, you didn't make an error in your spelling because the words already have meaning and was given meaning by
There you go.
intelligent.
There's no such thing
So
as
there's
an
no
error
so
in
mutations.
this. This is
So
such a
mutations
dumb
didn't
way
give
to
the,
argue.
the mutations didn't give any meaning to the sequences. You supporting exactly what I'm saying. Why can't you accept you
There's no
supporting my
such thing as an
position?
error in your
You
worldview.
supporting my position.
No,
Like,
I'm not.
you
I'm
are.
really not, because anybody that's honest would say you didn't say
Listen.
that, and I made an error when I wrote it down. But I wrote it down because
Why did
you
you hold
saying
up? Tell me.
that copying information incorrectly doesn't count as an
Wh-
error,
No,
because
it,
information is information. You
but
make
listen.
no distinction between one set of information and another
No,
set of
and I
information.
make no distinction between the.
That's, that was obviously completely pointless.